So, good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me. I've just started the broadcast, which makes this Hangout public for everybody that is watching us over the internet through Google Plus or through YouTube. We have with us Pavel from the Czech Republic, Sjoerd from the Netherlands, and Ms. Mertel from France. I think Luis will join us in a few minutes. I already alerted him a few times earlier today that the Hangout starts at this hour, but he's in Canada, so he might have some trouble connecting at this maybe early hour for him. Thanks for making time available. Let me first check if everybody can see and hear me.
Hi guys, I can see and hear you.
Okay.
Sjoerd from the Netherlands.
Thank you, Sjoerd. I noticed that. Pavel?
Yes, everything works fine. Thanks.
Okay. And Miss Magali?
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
Excellent.
It's okay. It's everything okay.
Okay, and the connection seems stable. That's fantastic. So again, thanks to all three of you so far to be here. I had a message from Niels Schmidt-Petersen from Denmark. He was unfortunately not able to make it today. And, well, with all of our agendas, I had to make a decision. So I just decided to let the meeting go on. Otherwise, we will be chasing each other. All right. So while we wait for Luis. Let's just reschedule a little bit the agenda that I had proposed. There were three things. I was hoping that Luis would be able to talk us through the case study that he's doing on open source tools that are used or available for public libraries. Second was Sjoerd's walk through his software project. And third is the presentation on the use of Koa and some other open source tools. So Sjoerd, can I give you can I give you the presentation?
Sure. I will see if the screen sharing works with the presentation.
Okay. I will then switch off my my video so to save bandwidth a bit.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to see if it... Can everyone see it full screen? The slide or not?
I can see the slide, but it's not a full screen. It doesn't matter. It's readable.
Okay, so the problem is if I go full screen, then I can't see the Hangouts anymore. So I'll just adjust the screen sharing to just share my full screen.
Okay, guys, I just added Martin Holtak from Library of Academy of Sciences. So he joined as well.
Okay, so can everyone see this slide now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. If there's any hiccups with the audio because I can't see anymore or the video, just let me know. So I was going to tell something, I'll just keep an eye on the time, about 10 minutes, about delving. So we originate from Europeana. We were part of the original technical team that built and delivered the first prototype and the first production version. And in 2010, we decided to start with a business around it called Delving, to make it easier for cultural heritage institutions to get their data online and share it together. And also get enrichments back. So if you link things to an external vocabulary, that you're able to get it back into your original systems. So what is our open source philosophy? What we've seen in many of the projects is that everyone nearly wants the same in number of features in what they offer to user, but most people just simply can't afford to spend that much money. The other problem is that they get a bunch of money from a government or the European Union to deliver a certain product or a certain open source tool, but they have no running budget to actually sustain that service. So you see many of these great initiatives die at the end of a project. So our idea is if everyone contributes a little to the overall open source project, then everyone benefits. So on GitHub you can see all our current open source projects. And so far in the past 2.5 years we've seen many take up of this idea that people just wanted to pay for their most wanted feature and then benefit and collaborate with other people to move it forward. Also to make sure that they keep intact with innovations. So what we basically try to do is give people the opportunity to share their data, to provide context and to improve them. And also put the domain expert central. So make it possible for them without a technical person to actually be able to map their data, upload it, and make it available via APIs. In order to do that, we also provide a large statistics component, so you can actually introspect your data, see what the quality is, how it can be improved. And we provide APIs that actually can read all this information back again. So if users are adding comments or relevant information, that you have ways to get it back into your own system. The most important element we're now pushing for is that persistent identifiers are actually put back into the source databases. Because you get lots of problems if you want to link the data up if there's not a good persistent identifier present. The other thing we started to implement due to large demand is make everything plugin based, so that people can actually mix and match exactly what kind of functionality they want to have, and also pay for a new feature being developed which is for a limited amount of time to their feature.
Hi, this is Lewis. Sorry for being late. I was off by an hour.
Pardon?
This is Lewis. Sorry for being late. I was off by an hour, and I turned off my vision because of bandwidth issues.
Okay, that's fine. Nice to have you along. I started giving a presentation about Delving open source platform.
Right, I was catching part of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing which is often confusing if you have a open source project or umbrella which have roughly the same name as the company behind it, that actually where does the company start and where does the open source part end. So basically everything we make, everything that's being wished for by the community is made available as open source. You can just download it, you can start it and play with it. As soon as you want support new features or you want to have it hosted so you don't have to take part of it yourself, that's where the company comes in and where you can actually hire some of this information. That's also how we make a living. The other central thing about what we're trying to do is that we just want to support domain standards. So if you map, for example, these are the mapping targets we currently support. We're also trying to make the whole collection registration part fully spectrum compliant. This is a standard developed by Collection Trust in the UK. And also the semantic web underpinnings are CIDOC CRM compliant. This is a conceptual reference model which is currently being promoted by ICOM, so the Museum Federation. And also all the web services are available as JSON or XML REST APIs. So what is our high-level roadmap at the moment? We want to enable full geospatial support, so you can do all the searches and render in different formats, and to provide also a Sparkle endpoint, so that all the data is available for graph-based searches. For next year and the year after, our focus will be on finishing the collection registration system, which is CIDOC CRM compliant. This means that people can either upload their data from the databases and publish it online, or create new collections or existing collections and manage them via our platform. The next stage is actually to provide a good digitization workflow. What we also mainly in Scandinavia is that there are a tremendous amount of high quality digital content available, but people just don't know how to make this available for the general public. So we aim to provide a system where it's easy to upload an image and to apply the right metadata to it.
Can I ask a question about that last
Sure.
point? Or do you want me to wait until you're through altogether?
No, just...
Well, the issue of creating a workflow for digitization seems incredibly important. Because it's one thing for you to have this apparatus, which seems, so from what I've been able to gather and from doing some other quick reading, very impressive. But making people aware of that, whom do you mean? Would you be talking about individuals or institutions or companies, or and how do you plan to get about making people aware of this?
You mean aware of the workflow, or
aware of the workflow and that they can digitize material and make it available for the archive? And what do you mean by the institutions? Do you mean government sponsored or?
Oh, okay. So currently, our user base of people that use our systems to bring stuff online are governments. So governments that want to have national aggregators to supply data and to supply the central thing. It's most regional authorities. So they have projects where they want to bring all the regional information, often together with tourist information and information about the natural resources together in a single search interface. And next to that is the individual institution. So that's small archives, museums or libraries that want to bring their data online. And the last important component are local history societies. So they are small enthusiasts that have their metadata now currently mostly in Access databases or just a text file, and actually want to publish all their digital objects and often annotate the object as well. So let's say on this picture you have these people, but this person is exactly here on the picture. So this workflow is aimed to cater for all these different use cases. So either people that do things massively in bulk, or a small ragtag team of people that have a particular interest and want to start publishing this information.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, and there's from the top of my head, there are some good documentation standards about this available from Australia. It's called Significance. So we're currently looking into that to at least use that as a template. So one of the things that everyone who's tried to take a database dump and put it online has a huge problem with is actually mapping data. So you take the source data and you want to map it to a target format. So we have a fully it's not web-based, it's Java Web Start. So you download it from the web and you start it with Java on your own machine. It's a mapping tool, so you get real-life feedback on any XML format. You get validation, how well your data is. You can check if the links are actually working to the images. And this tool has been built so that a domain expert without a huge amount of technical knowledge is able to map their own data and publish it online. And it's a multi-user tool, so multiple people can collaborate on the same data set. Maybe next time I can actually demo the application if people are interested. So for the search part, we use Apache Solr at the moment, but we're also looking into seeing how Elasticsearch might be better, which is another Lucene-based open source product. And we offer spatial search based on this. And so as soon as you do a search query via the API, you can also publish this data on Google Earth or Google Maps and see how your data looks like. Um, see. So in order to make it easy for external developers to reuse our APIs, it's self-documenting. So every part of it, depending on the data you've put in, has an explain function. So when you say explain is true, it will just explain all the options you have at that particular point. And you can dynamically compose things you want to show, like the facets, breadcrumb trails, and all these things. And we also support multiple output formats. So if you've mapped to Lido and to EDM, for example, you can actually show both of them if you want. So this is my last slide. So what we try to be is a services catalyst. So as soon as you reuse our platform, it becomes incredibly easy for you to collaborate with other museums. So if you want to merge two collections together and provide a single search point, or you want to create virtual collections or virtual search backends, it's incredibly easy to do so. We also try to find ways in which we can provide business models for partners. So if someone uses our systems to put their stuff online and people want to reuse it, that they can find ways to have third income streams through this. And the reusable consumer services need to be easily implemented. So at the moment, whenever you use one of our web-facing interfaces, it works well on mobile interfaces, tablets, and the web. And if a project we're currently tendering for in Norway goes through, there will be a web client for Android, and iOS will be available through the open source space as well, which museums can reuse. We're using Apache Cordova for that, if people are not aware of it.
Can you, this is a sorry to interrupt again, can you speak a little bit on the Norway project?
On the what?
On the Norway project.
Yeah, so we're really a European-wide based company or initiative, so we're basically spread all over Europe. But we do a few projects now in Norway and Sweden. So this particular project in Sweden that we have already made the whole backend for is also they are now tendering for the mobile client. So what they do is they combine cultural heritage information from all over Norway together with cultural thesauruses or natural thesauruses. So someone can actually stand anywhere in Norway with their mobile client and say what's around here, and events which have taken place or objects which are describing it are shown, but also counts from animals. So these animals should be anywhere near you. These are the counts. This is the information if you want to know about it. So it's really a way, at least they're trying now to bring all these things together and make it palatable for users.
That's impressive.
To actually start using it.
That's very impressive, actually.
Yeah, and they're also, so yeah, I didn't have much time, but the other thing we do in our system is to provide proxies, in the sense that if you have a whole number of web services and you would like to all reuse them or you reuse parts of them, you cannot really optimize for speed or performance. So what we do is you can actually make this small plugin for a proxy and then say reuse this external web service and cache the results if they're anywhere within this amount of time. But the output will be the same as the rest of our APIs. So you actually don't have to, in your own code, cater for all these different XML or JSON formats that you get from the different web servers. You just get one format back. So it's just a convenience tool. So that's what they use in Norway as well. So Wikipedia, DBpedia, and a number of local web services are all being wrapped so to give a unified search experience. This was everything I wanted to tell for now. Any other questions?
I have many, but I will wait for later to think about this, because this is, again, quite impressive work that you have done.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We aim to please.
Yeah, I'm already browsing your website, so I'm trying to get more Thanks.
Oh yeah, so it's just our website is www.delving.eu, and there should be some examples on there as well.
I do have a simple, incredibly dumb question that I get somewhat anxious about thinking, even asking, which is the funding for this kind of project, because as we read about in the newspapers, the European Union is going through schizophrenic attacks. And so something like this presumably requires a fair amount of funding, both for the present and for the future.
Well, in that case, I can surprise you. So far, we have been 100% self-funding. So we've never had a government grant to do any of these. There's never been a project. We didn't take venture capital, or we didn't take loans or anything. So
and how did you do this? I'm just curious, because you seem to have hit upon the magic formula.
I can't say it hasn't been that easy, because we ran into a number of these tricky problems. So one of them, let me start, if Gijs says it's okay, let me start at the beginning. So basically what we do is that people that want and need a kickoff, a kickstart, we actually have Kickstarter projects with them. So we basically then bring all their content online, we provide them with a basic theme so they can have a search website. So this is part how we fund. We offer hosted services, so if they don't want to host it on their own machines and do all the monitoring and stuff, they can actually host it for a reasonable price, we hope, on our systems. This wasn't originally the plan. This just grew into providing test instances for everyone, and they said, this is so nice and fast, why can't we keep it? We offer support contracts so that people can just call us and get help with mapping or other services. And the large, bigger part we do is we try to have multiple people collaborate together. So if none of them have enough money to pay for the big projects, we team up different people that have the same interest in our community and try to see if they can actually have a shared project together.
Thanks,
so,
that's good.
Yeah. And we were able to fund 6 families from this so far. So
that's impressive.
It has gone really, it has been well. And what I said at the beginning, it seems to be the people don't want to be locked in anymore, so they can get their data out of this system in any way they want. They actually want to be taken seriously, so that they have something useful. And the last part is that what we found is that many people in the cultural heritage domain don't have a strong technical background.
No, really?
They find it extremely difficult to work with people that don't have a domain expertise. So how can you ask people to develop a website if they don't know Dublin Core, for example? And you have to explain what metadata is and how you do practices of cataloging, for example. So I think having this part where you have people that can actually help you make the right choices with modeling and other things, instead of having to explain every boring detail about why it is that you do what you do. So this really helps to pick up.
Do you mind if I ask one more question? I know that I'm intervening with other people's presentations. Guy, do I have time for one question after this?
I think you should have time for a question. Yeah, I have a question for sure too. Could you name a few examples of museums or archives that are using your software, if you can share those names with us?
Yeah, sure. So in the Netherlands, it's DIMCON. It's the National Museum Aggregator, and they're also using this platform to provide nationwide statistics about museum usage. In Norway, it's the National Arts Council that's running their Kulturnet on it. That's an example. There's an initiative called Brabant Cloud in the Netherlands as well, where they are providing this as a service for all museums, archives, and libraries in the region.
So you mentioned Sweden. You mentioned Sweden.
Yeah, for Sweden now we are working on a project with the National Archive and the Digitization Authority. So there's a test region. Western.
I'm familiar with the National Archives in Sweden. I tried working with them about 5 years ago with Kent Arberg when I was trying to persuade them to move over to open document format. And they were deciding between open document format and Microsoft Office formats, and they wanted a complete package. But my impression also from Sweden, from trying to work in open source there and open standards, was 5 years ago they were very reluctant to move away from essentially vendor lock-in companies like Microsoft, and they didn't see any compelling reason to. What do you think changed their mind? Because I could see how they would change it. You know, the developer or the more technically inclined want to move away because they saw the shortcomings of proprietary formats. But the people who were actually using it, and thus the people who had the money, didn't see that as a compelling reason. So I'm wondering what you think might have changed people's minds.
What I think is changing now is that with sources like DBpedia, there's such a tremendous opportunities to link data. As soon as you link a person which is in your repository to a DBpedia person, you certainly have the description of that person in all these different languages. You have their birthplace, their death place, a tremendous rich amount of information. So they start to realize that firstly, if you want to start linking things and how they want the services they want to provide to their end users depend on contextualization of information. So if you can't provide context, what you're looking at, but just free text, it's really difficult to grab people's attention and to get them to come back and really use your system. So that's part of it. And the second part is that they funded a tremendous amount of initiatives which all failed on very simple points, is that none of them had persistent identifiers, so they couldn't link their data. You couldn't get data back into the source systems. As soon as you would aggregate data, it would be dead. Links would be broken. I mean, every project they funded in Sweden like this failed miserably on the quality level. So what they hope now is that if they support open data formats, support open APIs, etc., that people will start reusing this content instead of creating yet another similar software package which no one will support later on or work with.
That's very interesting to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Sjoerd, for those for the presentation and these answers already. Louise, also again, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
And sorry I'm late again. Sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine. We're happy to have you here. I was wondering, I didn't completely hammer this out with you over the past few days, but do you think you could walk us through the research that you've done so far?
Yes, it's well, part of the problem is that there's a lot of different efforts around the world, but especially in the developed areas. So we'll just limit it right now to places I've been able to find some more information on, say North America, a bit of South America, and Europe. And you are familiar with the European situation. In fact, I'm learning more as I'm talking to you. In North and South America, the problems that we encounter there are that because of the size that one is working with, unlike Europe, for example, Canada is roughly the size of the continent, or any country in Europe. Canada is vast and the United States is equally vast, but Canada has roughly the population of, it's 37 million people, so it's a very tiny place. And each library effort and archive effort has its own focus and is provincial. So the result is you have a patchwork of isolated endeavors and many people trying to do things on their own, but also a retreat finally to what Sweden was doing perhaps about 5-6 years ago. Costly endeavors and nothing really going very far except for some very rudimentary elements. So the potential is there. The interesting things that are in fact going on relate more to technologies associated with open access. And again, that's fairly interesting, but is somewhat limited by the very shortcomings of the market that it's having to deal with. The United States is a little bit more interesting, but the problem there is you have a overabundance of competitive interests. And you have the recent efforts by the federal government, such as the White House efforts to make things available in open data, to proclaim and then to act upon proclamations of making open access a policy, and also making the archives and things associated with that more available, technologically speaking, to people who want to capitalize upon that or who use that information. But the problem is that it's, again, not fully coherently documented, is one way of putting it, because there's so many different competing elements going on. What I've been going through is trying to think what would be the deciding point for many of these efforts. Part of the problem is that the group that would be doing it would be outside of the government, which is something we're all familiar with, but then they're trying to present the service they would be offering as something that either would save the government money or something the government or any kind of enterprise, public or private, would want. And the things that were just described are certainly crucial to that decision, that you're going to be relieving somebody of the work of having to do something that's necessary. But people are, by people I mean officials who actually make decisions about the allocation of money here, are still somewhat reluctant because this is all fairly new to them. They have been established in proprietary systems, or if they have moved a little bit to open systems, they're still not compatible with other systems. And because there are legacy archive issues that go back quite far, the burden of actually moving from one to the other is more complicated. So progressively, what needs to be done is provide people with, again, a case study of something that has been accomplished relatively painlessly and can be rolled out in both small and perhaps larger systems. Small would be, say, local archives, subnational archives, and then also larger would be larger national archives on, say, particular areas. What I would be curious to know then, and I'm just giving a very brief abstract summary, I can provide more details on this and show where it's been more successful, but what I'd be curious to know is, what are you doing about legacy material that may or may not be digitized or included into archives, and how do you go about then managing a layered archive that has both non-digitized or incompatibly digitized material with that which is being digitized and put into a mode that can be accessed in a interoperable or intercompatible manner. So I guess the question is, say that a given subnational or national archive or system wants to use the digitization capabilities that you're offering, but they have a bunch of material that can't be easily digitized or that was incompatibly digitized. How do you work with their established legacy systems?
I'm not entirely sure, Luis, if that's a question that you want to participate.
It is a general question, and it's a main problem, so that the criticism that I've heard many times is that somebody will say, well, we have 1 million documents that can't be included into the system because it's too much money to make that conversion, or because there's just no reason for, and we're interested in doing, say, future documents, but what do we do about the current or existing documents? I'm wondering if anyone in this call has ways of has addressed that.
Yeah, I can say something about it, or how we encounter this. That we make it just as long as you can dump it to XML, we can convert it. So some people, the Austrian developer that works for Delving, also worked on digital preservation project for EU projects for quite a few years. So we have some experience there. And what you see when people really have old data which is problematic, it belongs into this digital preservation time set, because often they can't open it anymore. There's bit rot. So the rule of thumb we have is that as long as not a digital preservation issue, we are able at least to get all your metadata out, and your digital object, as long as we can convert it into an open format. Especially the text extraction, most of the time is never a problem.
Okay. And I have another question. How long does it take for any, say, decent size or reasonable, let's say, large archive, whether it's national or subnational or even, say, a private archive? Roughly, how long would a conversion process or implementation of the device or the system take? So an example would be, say that I'm a subnational public enterprise, call it a city library or regional library or archive, a city archive, and I want my material to be digitized according to the system that Delving has. And it has, say, 10 million documents, probably more, and they range from being papers to being digital archives of some other format, and so on. How long, roughly how long would it take from beginning to end to move things over to a system that allows people then to be happy? That was actually a
Kind
question.
of a good question. Sure, this was, I think, directed to you directly.
Or anyone really who's had experience in this.
Yeah, that's certainly not me. Pavel, maybe is there something that you
Right.
encountered?
I'm sorry about it. I was muted again. It or sometimes auto mutes me. So what I tried to say is that we have 3 pillars that we try to achieve. That's the metadata aggregation, make it easy and fast and scalable to get your stuff online, the collection registration, and the digitization workflow. So at the moment we have completed first pillar, and we're working on the collection registration. So we have a very basic digitization workflow at the moment, but it's not nearly good enough and scalable enough to give it out to everyone. So for the first pillar, it actually doesn't matter how much data you have. It's normally within a day, all your content can be online and searchable.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we have now almost 30 million records in one of the cores. So also the amount of data really doesn't matter. And if you have, for example, PDFs or other text extractable content online, we can also do automatic extraction. So you can get full text search with that as well, as long as this stuff is online. So, but the digitization currently, whenever I need to do it, I can see why there's better tooling needed.
Yes.
To get all this stuff online, because it's always the devil is in the details, right? It's these small tricky things which you think have gone all right and in the end didn't go.
Speaking of devil in details, I know that you've only hit upon the 2 points, but it gives me an idea of your process then. What about DRM, or which is something that a lot of libraries are especially anxious about? For example, one thing I've been researching on is libraries are perfectly happy to have things digitized, but have to work, weirdly enough, from my perspective anyway, with the publishers saying no, they're not going to be making it freely available for infinite duplication by students. So I'm wondering what limitations are put on documents, if any, or if that's something that you're interested in doing or do.
No, I mean, what we do is, I mean, that's what I believe, that all this information should be freely available on the web. And people should reuse it and repurpose it and remix it and do whatever with it. But in the end, it's the decision of these institutions. So what we offer is fine-grained access control. So they can, either through their metadata or other means, define what is available to whom under which conditions. So they can mark things as everything is free, or they can mark certain things only someone that's logged in with these rights can be able to see these search results, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar question with the security, but it's answered.
Yeah. It's really important. We also encrypt whenever something goes out of the system, like for the mapping tools, all this data is encrypted. So it doesn't accidentally go hang out or whatever, be left somewhere where people can see sensitive information.
Thank you.
All right, Louis. Is that the overview you wanted to give to us, or anything?
Briefly,
I will
there's
give the floor to Ms. Martel.
yeah, just one last point before we move over, and that is that digitization in libraries, as you know from just the journals, is accelerating. And the main thing that in the United States and Canada, the concerns are related to exactly the ones that I hit on at this very end, which is actually the control of information, not the freeing of information, but the imprisonment of it. And that's, I assume, something that is also being hit. So that was answered. And the only other point would be that there's several companies that are offering this too, and I'm wondering very briefly if any of those companies that are currently in the United States are being dealt with in Europe as well. But I can ask that by email.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand the question. Could you maybe rephrase it?
Sure. There are numerous companies in the United States and to some extent in Canada, and I think also globally, that are offering both digitization efforts for libraries, but also making available e-books, for example, to public libraries and university libraries for lending. And one characteristic that runs throughout all of them is that they have various degrees of control, DRM, as was just explained. And that's fairly essential to any kind of library investigation of digital access or digital distribution of material. And I'm wondering, simple question was, do you encounter similar teams of competing companies in Europe offering that degree of e-book control or electronic document control by private companies?
At the moment, what I know from projects that I've worked with is there are two types of these companies. One, you just have to pay everything, pay full price, but then it's yours. Or companies that subsidize the digitization and the whole process and the OCRing, but then most of the copyright and redistribution right remains on their side. So they can then earn money through paywalling, basically, access to this information.
Yes.
This happens mostly with archive, which then put up these paywalling to content, which was largely paid to be digitized by the state anyway.
So my question is, does this affect the way that you're doing your work, or what governments expect or public sector expects out of you?
No, not for us. I mean, I would not. This is not a business model I think is fair. I mean, everything being paid by public money should be publicly available under any public license. So what we offer is the tooling for people to either do it themselves, to get enthusiasts or volunteers available to get all this data online, and trying to use the best of breed open source software to achieve this.
Okay.
But in the end, it's the responsibility of the institutions that own this information to decide how they want to do it.
All right. I don't mean to interrupt too much, but I also want to make sure we have time for Ms. Hertel to show us a bit of what they're using in Toulouse.
Yes. Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Thank you for your invitation. I will speak about